Just going to do a little intro, try and help anyone else out. I couldn't find much information online with these issues. So a little backstory: bought the car, had a dodgy tune on it. They hid in the DTC faults. I retuned it to a stage 2 and it started going to limp mode, and I was getting the faults because before it was misfiring but no engine lights were appearing. So around 4,000 RPM, 19,000 PSI through the injectors, you was getting the 4560 fault code and the 4570. Now a lot of the time that is always to do with the R90 pumps, just because they can't keep up, and it turned out to be that, as you can see. So I ended up changing the rear control valve. Didn't change anything, did freshen it up in one sense, so I was happy with that. Tried changing the front rail sensor, didn't change anything either. Now with the Autel, there is a bleed cycle on the BMWs when you do this job. You'll be able to find that with any of the other BMW diagnostics. They'll have the process on there, so I would recommend, before you do it, having something like that. You'll want a 10mm fuel hose, or if you're in America, 3/8, because of the new R90 pumps. They don't have the banjo bolt here from this fuel hose, it's more of this style. So you'll just want that to pop on. You'll need a box cutter to cut the old line off, and then just cut it to the same length with your new hose. On eBay they do sell a fuel pump removal tool. This was £15 and it does the job perfectly. You will need to lock the timing on the flywheel of the engine. You can do so by getting someone to help you. Crank it over slowly and pushing an Allen key through is what I did, or you can buy a tool online to do it. If you look up BMW M57 locking tool by flywheel, it'll bring up the method as well. I've tried to keep the video short as possible, so you can just see each step what's on there instead of going through taking all the nuts and bolts apart. Hopefully this will help someone out. Got a 35D E92, be fitting an R90 fuel pump to it. First you're going to want to take all the scuttle off that's in the other videos. Take your engine cover off. Once we've took that off, I'll show you what else needs to come apart. Once you've got your engine cover off and scuttle, also what I do is I remove the 30mm battery line. I just move it to the side for when you take off the inlet. You can lift this up out of the way. You're going to want to unplug your EGR hose. If you still have one, unplug your anti-shudder valve. You'll have pull this line from here, that's your battery. You'll have a 10mm screw in here, remove that. Unplug your map sensor and your rear control valve at the back, unplug that. Underneath here you'll have a hose on this side, that's here. Pull this out, and then you've got your boost solenoid underneath, you might not see it. Unplug that, and then we'll go ahead and remove these bolts. They stay inside, and just remove the nuts from here. What you do is unscrew it so they don't fall down, get a magnet, and just pull each one out with a magnet, and I'll show you the next step. Mention, just unclip this, unplug it, flathead for your EGR pipe, take the clamp off, just move it on the side, and then once everything's loose it'll lift up. Look something like this once it's done. We'll have to remove some of the hoses and possibly coolant lines. To get from the front, there's a 17mm Allen key on the front that we need to get off first before we can put our locking tool that'll push it out, and then there's a few 30mm nuts on the back. To get into there's not a lot of space, as you can see. Use the breaker bar to crack it, and it is moving. What I'll do is get this out and see what the spacing's like, see if it's possible without taking any of the EGR coolant hoses off as well. The Allen key cap out, what you want to do is fit one of these. This is off eBay, it's about £15 I believe. First insert this around, and then after we've done that we'll take the stud out and insert the rest of it. Essentially all it's going to do is push against the back of the fuel pump. We won't do any of that until we've removed the nuts on the back of the fuel pump. This is just to keep it locked in place. You've got your Allen key adapter in there like mentioned. I've gone ahead and removed top fuel line. I've just tucked it out the way, where if I can find it, behind here, just up out the way. And then you've got the bottom one, which is on a banjo bolt, 17mm. This is the line that we'll go further back to the T-piece, just under the hose. You might not be able to see it very well down here. That's what's getting changed for a 10mm hose, as the fitting on the R90 pump is like this. It's not on a banjo, so we'll take it further back and replace the hose. What I'm doing on the car is I'm removing the 3 30mm nuts. This is the R90 pump, as you can see for a reference to help you out. I'll just get these out, now the fuel line's off and it's unplugged, and then we'll start to pop the pump out. I've got my nuts all off the back. I've just gone and cable timed one of the vacuum hoses, just took it off from here, as you can see the fitting. And then what we'll go ahead and do is there's a nut on the inside, I believe it's a 22mm inside here. We'll crack that off from your fuel pump. It's on this side, so we'll get a socket on that, crack that off, and then we'll fit our insert into it, if I can find where I've put it, and start popping it out. So once you've got that out, you'd fit your insert into there, tighten this on, and then once that's in, we'll start threading this through, and it'll just pop it through. There's a little ball bearing in there, so when you turn that, as you can see, it'll just apply some pressure to the fuel pump and pop it out. Undone the nut on that, but what you need to do first is, we ain't got time until you can purchase one. There is an Allen key where the torch is, don't know if you quite see it. So what you need to do is press against the Allen key in the bell housing, the far bolt, and while you do that, you need to just rotate the timing on the engine and you'll hear it pop in. Once that's slotted in, you can then go ahead and crack the nut off the fuel pump. Once you've done that, you've tightened your screw on there, your fuel pump will pop out. What I've done is zip tied, as you can see, some of the hoses up out of the way. You should be able to just remove it now and get your new one and pop it in. Might be a bit of a fiddle to get it out, but wiggle it out. 90 fuel pump upgrade. You're going to need a 10mm hose, it's about £5. Because on the new one, if you have a look, on the old one, there is a banjo bolt. That's on this side, where the fuel is. On the new pumps, it is now an actual line. So what we'll do is, when we get it all off, we'll adjust this over and the fuel hose will go on there. As you can see, I've got the R90 pump in. Before fitting it, just take the gasket out, give it a clean the studs up, clean the back of your R90 pump. I've lightly misted mine with some silicone spray. You'll have wanted to remove the other fittings, only leaving this one in place at the front. Put your 30mm bolts in and tighten them up. With the bottom 30mm bolt, I put a bit of blue tack in the socket just so it won't fall out and you could guide it in a bit easier. So I've just removed this after tightening up the 22mm bolt that was on the inside, and I've put the Allen key cap back on, and then I'm going to go ahead and change over this fuel hose. So if you see, like I mentioned, the one with the banjo on, so we'll try and remove this from the T-piece down there and then replace it with a 10mm hose, and that will then drop into this bottom one down here. Your top one is for your original, so your top one's up there. I'm going to put a new Jubilee clip on that one as well. You can see, just used a box cutter. I've cut a little slit down on the fuel hose and it should wiggle right off, and then we can go and measure with hose and cut it to the same length. Got all them in, all the hoses back on, fuel rail on. Go ahead and start putting it back together again. So once you've got everything together, you're going to want to bleed the fuel system. You'll need to have more than a quarter of a tank of fuel in the car to start with, and normally I will turn the ignition on and off a few times, just try and pump it through. You want a 17mm spanner. I normally go for your front injector, crack it just ever so slightly so you can see any bubbles seep through, and just try and fit the spanner in anywhere. I'll show you quickly on the screen. It's an automated system. Once it goes through, it will be in the service menu under powertrain and then diesel electronics, and then it's the fuel system bleed. If you've got it running, just check the area underneath for any leaks, make sure everything's happy, and then I'll give it a few minutes to idle. What we're going to do is go back to the auto, and it'll then put itself through a idle increase speed process. As you can hear, it'll just hold it above 2000 RPM for about 10 minutes. So just come back after 10 minutes and then try to start it a few times and see how it is. A few minutes now, as you can see with the torches, I've been watching it, making sure there's no fuel leaks at all. It's still warming up near the end of its 10-minute cycle. I've tried to keep the video short as I can with keeping everything in there, and I hope this will help someone else out that's in the same situation.